welcome to another episode of Inquiring Minds. I'm Steve Harper, and with me, as always, is my amazing co-host Donna Carlin. How you doing, Donna?
I'm really good. And yourself?
I'm fantastic. I'm excited for today's conversation. What are we diving into today?
So here's another quote of wisdom by Dennis Waitley that I came across, and I really loved it. It's not what you are that holds you back. It's what you think you're not. And I love that. I
uh,
just love that. People say, I'm not this or I'm not that. And they literally limit themselves as to what's possible by predetermining that they're not good enough, they're not strong enough, they're not that leader, they're not that person that you should look at, for leadership. All of it, and it's a way that people minimize themselves. So it definitely holds them back.
Absolutely. Yeah, no,
And
I see this played out all the time, right? Whether it is with the clients or with sometimes my own personal self-reflection. I do think
yes,
that we run into that situation because I think we have this tendency to categorically put ourselves into a box, and we don't see ourselves beyond that box. A lot of times we can't envision that we have the intelligence or the background or the experience or the chutzpah to be able to move forward with something that we think we're not qualified, or we're not capable, or we're not there's you get into that downward spiral, and it absolutely can be um, um, stall you out in a big way.
you know, I'm finishing up my manuscript, and what occurred to me as I'm rewriting is, in order for me to look at who am I, and to write about who am I, another perspective, and we're talking about a lot of perspectives of late, is what does it mean to live my authentic life? What is it to be my authentic self?
Hmm.
And this quote speaks to that, because if you are your authentic self, it empowers you to be genuine and boldly expressed.
Hmm.
And when you are that, you're not the other thing. You're not the person who says, that's not me, or no, 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 I can't do that, or everyone else is smarter than me, everyone else is better than me, and actually limit the possibilities that come across. And what happens is, when you're living in your authentic self and being your authentic self, it makes you feel absolutely confident. So when you speak, you're speaking from confidence, not out of fear of being judged or out of regret. It's like minimizing, or sharing a caveat before you say something. You might not agree with me, or, maybe I don't know everything there is to know about this. And these caveats, what they do is they share your belief or lack of belief in yourself, um, which holds you back. There's no question.
Well, it takes all your power when you do it, for sure. I mean, not only your self power, but in how other people perceive you in whatever you're about to say, right? Or, or you're automatically telling them, you're setting them up to recognize that you're not an equivalent in some capacity, and that's a problem. I think the interesting aspect for this, for me, is really, why does it happen? Why do people end up doing it? And a lot of times it's because we've told ourselves these stories, or we've had poor experiences, or we've felt in situations where we have to justify why we haven't achieved something. And so this gets into one of these situations where we are kind of our own worst enemy. We're a defeatist of our own potential, because we're unwilling to consider that, that was yesterday. What happens today is completely up of our own choosing, right? We're the author of our own story. And when you won't take control of that, you can't be confident in that story that you want to author, or that decision that you need to make, or that step forward that you need to take.
That's right. And so I guess the first question is, am I living my life based on what other people think I should be? And how I should hold myself, how I should speak. And I caught myself doing that the other day when I said to Ray, do you think it's acceptable to say the words pissed off in my book? And he said to me, maybe you could get away with that. So I said, what about shit disturber? And he said to me, no, he has a different outlook. I said, but somebody, that's what I said in conversation with the people at TED when they called me a pot stirrer. And I said, what you're saying really is that I'm a shit disturber. And they said, no, you just throw all this stuff in a pot, stir it up, and new things emerge. And that's what you do for us, which I thought was brilliant. And that's why I kept the pot stirrer thing. I said, okay, you could keep that on my profile. I really not only respect that, but I'm honored that you think that of me. So that conversation alone helped me see something through a different lens, but it also brought to the table, why am I asking somebody else for permission as to what is acceptable to put in my book?
Yeah.
Now, my editor might end up saying, this isn't really a smart move, that kind of thing, and would invite me to change it, but wouldn't force me to change it.
Right.
It's asking yourself, who's really running my life? Is it other people's shoulding me to death? You should do this, you shouldn't do that, all of that. Or am I being my authentic self? And therefore, not telling myself, this is not who I am.
Yeah.
And this is what I can't do instead of what I can.
Well, it's a balance, right? Because at the end of the day, you paused enough on that term to ask the question. So you invited in other people's opinions, which I think we often always do, just whether we need it or not. It's almost like a bad habit that we do that. Not saying that that's what you did, but what I hear is like, maybe there was a little bit of conflict internally about whether I should say this or not say it. So you sought people that you trust and admire and say, hey, how does this sit with you? You may still make that decision one way or the other to go the way you want to go, which I think is great. I think people that are lack the self-confidence or that ability to stand up for who they are, you may seek outside counsel and guidance on those things. But if you don't have that same level of confidence, you're probably easily bent one way or the other. And it's often to what that person thinks is right, which is why I think so many people vacillate in so many ways, right? There's so many things that, people just, they blow with the breeze. So when I hear that term, I look at it differently, right? The pot stirrer piece is different, but I actually look at the shit stirrer differently in that you could take it one of two ways. One being that, you're trying to cause conflict for the sake of causing conflict, or you can't make an omelet without scrambling some eggs. You have to make some stuff happen. And the only way to make stuff happen, whether it's getting a team to see they're treating one another poorly or that they have the ability to achieve something that they don't think they can, you kind of have to go shake that carton of eggs and you got to put in the milk and the cheese and all the things that are going to make that omelet. And that requires all of the shit to get stirred. And you got to cause a little bit of that conflict so that they can get up on the other side to see what the actual outcome is. Pot stirring, on the other hand, to me, when I view it and how I've heard you phrase it, is a little bit different. You're kind of like the Tedsters told you, right? Kind of throwing everything in the pot. You're kind of moving and you're making the gumbo happen, right? And there's still an outcome, and it's a positive outcome, but it's a little bit more collaborative. You're not breaking things for the sake of breaking. Or not that shit stirring you're doing that either, but at the end of the day, the pot stirring is a little bit more of an easy term. The shit stirring, on the other hand, is like, look, we're going to have to break some stuff in order to get some stuff right and fix. The other one is, in my imagery, is we're just kind of putting the ingredients together. We're kind of molding this around, and we're going to take what you don't believe in yourself, and we're going to put it in here and fix that. And we're going to take that strength that you bring to the table, and we're going to bring that in, and we're going to combine that. We're going to make it better because it's better together. So there's everybody brings their own piece to the pot, but how we put it together really makes the recipe. And the difference to me is they're kind of vastly different. And so I like both terms personally, but my opinion is not necessary here, but I like both terms. But I think using that as the example for what we were just, what we're talking about on the greater subject is that's where we all, end up falling off the horse is we bend too easily to the opinions of other people because we don't have enough self-conviction to follow our own gut instinct.
And in this quote, it's also saying that our self-conviction is what we're not, and that we're
Right.
focusing on what we aren't rather than what we are.
Yeah.
And to really not monopolize as such, I'm trying to find a better word for that, but to focus on what we really are and become masterful at it. That's what it's all about. So I'm looking at the question, where are you holding yourself back? Where are you automatically, your default is, oh, I can't do that. I'm not good for that. I'm not going to step in and put my hand up to be interim leader or whatever, because that's not me. How do you know it's not you? In what capacity can you lead? You don't have to be a carbon copy of the person you might be replacing. Be you, be all of you. Bring your unique perspective to the table and shine.
Yep.
So what is your superpower rather than what aren't you? And, what stops us from focusing on that? I'm curious to hear. I'd love, our listeners to actually weigh in on this, because I want to know what your default thinking is. Is your default thinking, I am good enough, I am going to dive in and do whatever I can in order to become more of who I am and step up to the plate? Or is my default that I'm not this, and that's not who I am, and I am, not worthy of or enough to do whatever that is? What is your default, and how do you get out of that thinking mode, and look at yourself through a different lens?
Well, I'd say, and this is very unscientifically proven, but I would say 9 out of 10 people fall to the latter, right? And
Yeah.
because we're so used to all the negativity that's out there, bad experiences, other people's opinions. We, especially with the pressures of social media and rejection, being so easy to happen day to day. I think that we are. Unfortunately, we are a society of defaulting back to the opinion of what everybody else thinks. The flip side of that is the fact that we're putting this on the table for discussion today. Get somebody to stop and go, wait a second, am I doing this? How often am I doing it? How is it holding me back? Why is it holding me back? Why am I letting that hold me back? And really, how do I fix that? How do I start putting my superpowers to work for the greater good, for my good? How do I start hiding in the shadows and allowing the views of other people to sort of only shine the segments of me that they like and think are appropriate? And how do I stop giving a crap about what other people think about, and start focusing on what is important to me? And I think part of that is that's a huge leap for a lot of people because they don't get that reinforcement on an ongoing continual basis as much as the downside and the negative. You could find that. We could go out on the web right now and we could find that in terms of the detractors or the haters or the naysayers. No problem. They're lined up around the block because it's easy to put that on somebody else because you have such poor perception of yourself, right? But it's the impact that it has on so many people that they're not living up to their truest potential, and that's a huge miss. So I think the
Yeah.
fact that we put this on the table and people will think about this and maybe say, well, maybe I am doing this a little bit more than I should be, I think is a really, really good thing.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And if it helps you just reflect for a moment and say, wait a minute, before I open my mouth, is that what I really want to say?
Yeah.
Because if you want to be seen as somebody with presence and impact or worthiness, start treating yourself that way to start off with.
Yep. Yeah. Because the other alternative, how fun is that? It's not. I mean, you're like,
No.
it's not the way to live. It's not the way to work. It's not the way to build relationships. Nothing about that works in your favor. So, it's a perfect opportunity for you to step up and challenge yourself to start looking at things differently.
Exactly.
To go back to our last episode, that's how do we look at this differently and think differently about this approach? So,
This is all good. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So anyway, this is a great one to put on there. Put on the table. I really am glad you came with this one today. So, how can our audience tell us what their thoughts are on this particular episode or episodes, of past? That how do they get involved and engaged in conversation with us?
Join our Facebook group, Inquiring Minds with Donna Carlin and Steve Harper. Tell us what your thoughts are, what you'd like us to discuss, where we screwed up if we did. Just kidding. What resonated with you, what didn't? What do you agree with? What don't you agree with? It's all relevant, and we want to hear it all. So seriously, join our group and let us know about yourself and what this is doing for you as you're listening to our shows. And all the podcast channels carry our podcasts. So enjoy and engage, and just know that we really want to hear from you.
Absolutely. Well, we are so grateful that you guys tune in every week for these conversations. We have had so many great comments, so much great feedback. We'd like to see that continue to come. I'd also encourage you to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. That actually helps our profile a great deal if you'd actually give a review to the show. And, we just appreciate you tuning in every week. And like Donna said, if you've got a topic you'd like us to tackle or a perspective you'd like us to revisit from a past episode, we are all ears. So, Donna, this has been a fun one. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for another great conversation. I hope you have a fantastic week.
You as well.
All right. Take care.